Hey everybody, it's 6 o'clock, so I guess we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna introduce myself. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Thomas Humphreys, and I'm the president of the Forestry Club this year. We're very happy to have Mr. Rex Benham here with us, who is the first African American graduate from the Warnell School of Forestry and Natural Resources. This is a very interesting thing for the Forestry Club to get to do because normally we are talking with people who are around the state of Georgia, and we're talking about job opportunities and internships. So we're very happy to be able to learn from someone who has a lot of past experiences and we can learn a lot of lessons from. With that being said, thank you all for being here. And I would like to introduce Dean Green, who is going to introduce Mr. Rex Benham for us.
Well, thank you, Thomas, and good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone on this call for attending this virtual event. It's too bad that we can't do this in person, but by doing it virtually, we can accommodate a wider audience and save Rex some travel from East Texas. The best part of serving the Warnell School as Dean for me is getting to interact with our alumni. They are among the most loyal and generous of any school or college on campus. Tonight, it's my pleasure to welcome back virtually to campus Rex Benham, a 1982 graduate of our forestry program. While we had students of color attending our program in the decades prior to Rex's arrival, our research reveals Rex to be the first African-American undergraduate student to graduate from what was then the School of Forest Resources and what has for several years been the Warnell School of Forestry and Natural Resources. He is with us tonight, as Thomas said, for a special meeting of the Forestry Club. This is part of the UGA's campus-wide celebration of the 60th anniversary of the desegregation of our campus. Like so many of our alumni, Rex has had a very successful and rewarding career in forestry, and he's going to share some of that with us tonight. It's our honor to host him tonight and recognize him for his accomplishments. So thank you, Rex, again, for taking the time to give back to our program and to share your perspectives and experiences with us. We have students and alumni, as well as faculty on the call tonight. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Rex Benham. Rex, we look forward to your comments.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. The title, "An Evening with Rex Benham," kind of makes it seem like we're having some type of formal get together, but I just want everybody to relax, and I guess I can give you some words of wisdom. I can definitely tell you about a lot of the things that I've encountered since I left the university, and I want to begin by saying that the years that I spent in Athens was probably some of the best years I ever had in my life. The highlight of it all was the fact that I got to see a lot of Herschel Walker play football and got to see a lot of Dominic Wilkins play basketball. And so that was something we always enjoyed. But the main thing is that I really fell in love with the campus. The North Campus with all the live oak trees and all of that was very attractive to me. The South Campus, where the Forestry School is located, was nice. More buildings than trees, but I walked all over that campus for the 4.5 years I was there, and enjoyed every minute of it. Little background on me: I grew up in Cartersville, which is in the northwest section of the state, about 45 miles up the interstate, 75 out of Atlanta. Spent a lot of my younger years up around Lake Allatoona. There was a school teacher by the name of Robert Cotton that used to take us young guys and take us up on the weekends and do some camping, fishing, that kind of stuff. And that's where I first got into being on a level with the nature part of it. And I really enjoyed being up there. And as time went by and it got to the point where I was getting ready to, graduate high school, I knew that forestry was probably where I was leaning. At the time when I was a senior in high school, I had two brothers that were attending the university, and it was either I wanted to be an electrical engineer and go to Georgia Tech, or forestry and go to Georgia. My brothers convinced me that I needed to be a Bulldog, so that's why I ended up. When I got there, it was very, very surprising to me. I had never seen that many people at one time in one place, and it was something that took me a little getting used to. By the time my brother Steve graduated, my brother Barry had already graduated when I was a freshman. But when my brother Steve graduated and I was there by myself, it was somewhat of a growing up I had to do. And as I got used to more or less managing things on my own, it gave me the ability to reach out and meet new people, make new friends, and do those types of things that if left to myself, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I can see some of the benefits of that stage in my life paying off right now when I have to encounter somewhat difficult situations. As it always allows me to pull back on those experiences where people are people, and it's all about how you want to treat yourself, you treat others. And so I learned that pretty early on. When I got into forestry school, it was a difference, but not so much a difference. Different from the standpoint the curriculum was more concentrated, but the fact that that I was the only Black person in 99% of the classes might sound a little bit overwhelming, but it had been that way for years, even in high school. So that part of it didn't intimidate me. It allowed me to, like I said earlier, make new friends, meet new people, and find out that there's a lot of commonality between the races. It always, when we can focus on the things that bind us together and not look for differences, that's when I think we can really be the best people that we can be. And it was fun. I really enjoyed my time in Athens. Have gone back on several occasions. Actually had a chance to take my wife to a football game there in Athens, and she really got a big kick out of that. She graduated from North Texas, and Mean Joe Green is their hero up there. But when she saw Gurley, man, she just went absolutely crazy. So she turned into a Todd Gurley fan after that game. But haven't been back to the university in a few years, not since that game, but we really have fun. Georgia always has a soft spot in my heart. I love that place. And I'm pretty sure we'll probably make it back there before too long. So with that, that's about all I have for right now, unless someone asks me any particular questions or anything of that nature.
I guess now we can throw the question and answer portion over to Dr. Bullock. I'm sure there's some questions that some people out there have for us. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen if anybody would like to take advantage of that.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. And thank you, Rex, for those words. We did have a couple of questions that were pre-submitted prior to the presentation tonight. And so I've got a few there, but you know, this is a wonderful opportunity for any of the attendees or participants here to go ahead and type a few questions or thoughts in there. And I'll see them. I think once you type them, you can't see them, but we see them all. So we'll see them and ask as appropriate throughout the night. You know, Rex, one thing that came up in some of these questions here were jobs. We've got a lot of young foresters and other natural resource professionals, not just forestry, but wildlife, fisheries, parks, rec, and tourism management. Really, that, you know, the whole broad spectrum of what we teach here in Warnell. And they wanted to know a little bit of insight from coming out of school in the 80s, early 80s, really, what the job market was like, and how that really impacted you in your search.
Well, when I, excuse me, when I was getting out of school in '82, the economy was not doing too well, and finding a job was pretty tough. I interviewed several companies there in Georgia, and just so happens that an alumni, Bill Hammock, was was heading Champion International's operations that was called the Gulf States operations, and they were headquartered in Huntsville, Texas, and invited me out for an interview, flew me out to Texas, and sat down, had a pretty good interview with them. They offered me a job. And at the time I had one job offer pending. And it was at that time that I had to come to Texas. You know, it was always, that was the next step. You know, I graduated college. And so now the next step is to find a job. And even though jobs weren't all that plentiful, I was able to almost take anything that was going to offer me. And been in Texas ever since.
Okay, thanks. Another comment that came up here, one of these questions that actually just came up with Q&A in here, and I'll go back to some of the other ones, but it's relating to some of your classes here at Warnell back then, and maybe mention one or two of your favorite classes, or if you had a favorite teacher, or anybody that's maybe still here. I don't know. So
had a dendrology teacher named Dr. Reynolds, and he was always good to be around. He was always in a good mood. Had a silviculture teacher named Fitzgerald, if I'm not mistaken, and he was different. He was different. He knew his civics, silviculture, but he was always on the verge of clowning, for lack of a better word. He enjoyed his work, and he enjoyed the students, and I really had a good time with him. But I think Dr. Reynolds was my favorite.
okay. Another thought here around, and it kind of goes back to that same mindset of a young natural resource professional forester. Like, how did you know that, and the question that was submitted was, how did you know like which aspect or subdiscipline of forestry you wanted to go into? And back then, and did you know prior to graduation, and then maybe how that has evolved or changed over time in your career path?
Well, one thing that during the time I was at the university, the school emphasized getting a summer job. And I happened, between my junior and senior year, happened to get a summer job with a company named St. Regis. They subsequently merged with Champion International in 1984. But this was summer of '81, I believe it was. And so I went to the Panhandle of Florida, and they had a mill down in Cantonment, which is just north of Pensacola. And I spent the summer cruising timber in the river bottom of the Escambia River. And that kind of exposed me to that part of the business, seeing lots of logging jobs, and knew then that was probably something that would be a good beginning for me, because when I did get a job in Texas, that's exactly what I was doing, was cruising timber. And so it fell right into place for me.
And how has that like evolved over the time, and like with your current job responsibilities and duties versus what you started with cruising timber back in the 80s?
Yeah, the cruising timber part was this fee inventory. And at the time, Champion had about 500,000 acres in East Texas, and it was divided up into 3, what they call procurement zones. And I was responsible for inventorying the fee land in the particular zone around Livingston, Texas. Then along came the merger with Champion and St. Regis. And St. Regis had the paper mill there in Florida. They also had one there in Lufkin, Texas. It is known to be the first mill to make newsprint out of southern yellow pine. And so when that merger occurred, I was transferred to Lufkin and was operating out of that northern logging and procurement area, basically chasing loggers. We had a paper mill and 2 plywood mills that we were responsible for logging, and got to know the land base. Eventually, after that, about 3 or 4 years, I switched over to the procurement side of the business and started buying timber from private individuals. The vast majority of the East Texas timberlands is privately owned. And so there's a large market for privately owned timber that was mostly handled by consultants. And so consultants would put the timber sale up for bid, and I would cruise and bid on them, and was pretty successful in getting my fair share of them. That rocked along to about 2000, and that's when International Paper and Champion International merged, and was transferred again. Still lived in Lufkin, but I transferred to an office of IPs that was 20, 30 miles to the north in a town called Nacogdoches. That's what Stephen F. Austin State University is located in. And they had a field office there, and I basically was managing logging contractors and doing some land management activities. It was about 3 years after that, another opportunity came up, and I was assigned to operate out of an IP office there in Center, which is about another 20 miles from Nacogdoches, which is in and of itself about another 50 miles from my hometown. So I was commuting from Lufkin to Center for about 1.5 years. And one of the things that was constantly going on during this time period is reorganizations, where Champion done a lot of them. It seemed like it happened every 18 months. And International Paper was doing the same thing. And so around about 2003, 2004, they had another reorganization. And I was assigned to Livingston. And so I'm right back in Livingston. So I made all the bases. I was still living in Lufkin, but I was commuting to Livingston now, and was doing at that time what International Paper was calling a specialist. And the particular job that I was having then was called a mid-rotation specialist, where I was in charge of the thinnings and the woody release program, the understory burning if we done any, and fertilization, which my primary responsibilities. And did that until about 2006. International Paper decided they were going to sell their timberlands, which was quite a bit of land, and that's how RMS got into Texas. They acquired the timberlands from International Paper, and I continued to do a similar function, such as the mid-rotation specialist work. They allowed us to stay basically the same way we were organized under IP, and so I continued those functions. Was doing those type things, and eventually got into what was basically a harvest manager's role. And as time went on, I eventually was moved into the area manager's role. I still do some of the same activities. You know, we are still doing planting prescriptions, site prep prescriptions, still doing logging work, because that's one thing that I definitely didn't want to lose, was my connection to the ground. I'm a dirt forester. I think that's my best skills, and I enjoy doing that. And so I want to stay connected to the dirt. And so I still chase loggers, plant trees. We do understory burning on a contract basis. So I'm in charge of that program here in Texas as well. Anything you can do outside, I'd rather be doing that. I do have to do some office work. We're responsible for budgets and all those kind of things. But the beauty of my job, at least I feel, is that if it get too hairy in the office, I can run to the woods and relax. But that's basically how my career unfolded.
So you see, if you think about it, right? I mean, I guess for some of the students here, right? You worked for St. Regis or St. Regis, then Champion, then IP, and now RMS, but in the same, physical region, right?
Except for the St. Regis. The St. Regis job was in Florida.
Oh, okay.
But it was only a summer job. But all the rest of my time has been spent in Texas since I came out here in '82.
Yeah.
And basically, same piece of dirt.
Different company.
Different company, same piece of dirt.
That's right. So let me see. I've got a couple other questions. Many other questions has popped up here, and I'll read them there to you, Rex. You don't have to worry about that. There is one here that was submitted really as the first African-American undergraduate from Warnell, although school of forestry at that time. Was it something you thought about through your time here, like when you were actually in school, or were you able to process that?
No, I don't think that it was really, that it was something that I thought about a whole lot. I mean, it was kind of obvious that I was the only Black student there, but as far as being the first, it was wasn't nothing that I actually thought about. Only as I got closer to the finish line, and some of the faculty would mention it, that it became kind of obvious to me that I would be the first, but it wasn't anything that I put down as a goal to achieve. My main concern was graduating forestry school.
Yeah. A question here that came in from a faculty member. Do you have any thoughts on how Warnell can really increase its visibility around the state and region, in particular around students of color who may not otherwise be, aware of opportunities in forestry and natural resources?
I think one of the things that, to me, I know growing up in Northwest Georgia, where there is a pretty substantial timber asset there, there's not a lot of talk, and there's not a lot of visitation from schools who manage natural resources. I think it would be tremendous if the university was to go to a high school, was to go to a middle school. I think the younger you get them, the more interest that you can develop in those guys. And if they have some kind of feel about being outside, I think interacting with Boy Scouts can be a tremendous asset. I think one of the things that really got me going was being in the woods at a young age. And I think the Boy Scout is a great avenue to accomplish that kind of stuff. But I think if you want to be more visible to Black students in particular, you got to go where they are. And you got to give them an opportunity to enjoy the outdoors. And I think I was just fortunate that I had a teacher that showed interest in the youth in the neighborhood and provided me with an outlet that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I think that could be a potential focus. I mean, get them young. You know, I got 3 grandkids, and my wife is steadily telling me that I need to write a book and provide pictures of what I do, because people don't know what I do, you know, and the only way that they can find out about my career path, the things I do in my life, is for me to tell them. But I think that's a story that needs to be told, not necessarily to necessarily recruit people, but it can be a good recruiting tool, is to know that, hey, we do these things. I mean, we've had more or less, I guess you call them fairs, to where people don't know where paper towels come from, you know? They don't understand where toilet paper comes from. They don't understand where disposable diapers come from. And I think just those minimum kind of exposures like that can go a long way. But I think the earlier you get them, the better off I think the industry could be as far as recruiting.
Yeah. Okay, so several more questions in the Q&A here, and there's maybe 2 that I'll pair together here. And one is thinking about how the natural resources forestry field has changed over the years, and maybe from a discipline perspective from when you first started to now. And then lastly, if you could give one piece of advice to students that are graduating, you know, this year or next year, you know, relating to the job and the profession, what might that be?
Well, when I was in school, it was all about timber. It was all about timber management. And I know when I first started working with Champion, you know, it was about wooding the mills, and you done that any way you could, and not necessarily being all that environmentally sensitive to how many creeks you had to fill forward to get to the timber on the other side of a creek. I mean, those are the kind of things that is a big no-no nowadays. And that you have to be more environmentally sensitive to the way we operate in the woods today. And so to me, that's one of the biggest changes that I've seen. In addition to this technology, computer technology in particular, the GIS systems are just awesome. You know, when I found out that I didn't have to compass and pace anymore, I mean, that was a tremendous benefit, because if you ever tried to compass and pace in a Yopon thicket in East Texas, it's almost impossible. But I think the technology has been tremendously good to the industry. But one of the things that I would encourage students that are about to graduate, or maybe are going to, summer interns. You know, RMS has a pretty robust program of internships as far as scholarships as well. And I think if you could avail yourself to one of those, we operate in 9 states across the South, from North Carolina all the way to Texas. And so there's tremendous opportunities for students to get an internship. And we provide our interns, at least here in Texas, with an opportunity to do almost anything that you can do in forestry, from logging inspections to cruising to don't get to plant trees because it's the wrong time of the year, but I think we give them a pretty good exposure to what forestry is like nowadays. And so I would definitely encourage you to get an internship if you could.
Okay. Thank you, Rex. Question here, kind of going back to your time here at Warnell. And the building I'm actually in wasn't here when you were here, this building 4. But someone was asking, what are some of your or one of your memorable spots in the Warnell buildings, and do you remember kind of where that was, and what was most familiar to you about it and enjoyable?
Well, during the course of my time there, I had to get a work study job because my Pell Grant was cut, and so all that kind of mess was going down towards the 80s and all that kind of stuff, and was able to get a work study in Building 3 down in the labs, to where one of the research doctors was actually making glue out of peanut hull. And we was actually gluing slabs of wood, simulating plywood, and was gauging the strength of the glue. And yeah, Building 3, spent a lot of time there.
Yep. Okay. I've got another question here, just around, I guess, in terms of trying to increase. Well, we already talked about our visibility in to other potential students of color or minorities, underrepresented folks that might be interested in forestry and natural resources there. But there was somewhere around trying to give, maybe faculty on the faculty side are teaching and instruction to students around ways that you could see our graduates excelling in the diverse workplace that really is available to them today. And if there's anything special in new hires that would be useful for our graduates to have or to work on, or maybe emphasize some.
I don't know exactly. I would think that coming into a workforce with I would think it'd be really important to have an open mind about what you will or will not do. I know I found myself in a few situations beating briars with a hickory stick and wondering, is this what I really went to school for, And I think one of the things that we have to accept sometimes is that we may have to take a position that may not be our heart's desire, but it is one of those stepping stones that our career path gotta go through. I think one thing that I think is real important is that you do have to have a can-do attitude. And I think benefits you a whole lot if you can accept the fact that it's going to be okay. I know just for me personally, I know that I I didn't have the opportunities to be mentored on a level that I thought would have been more beneficial to me. I think having a mentor when you come out of school, with wherever you land your employment with, I think is very beneficial. I think also if you can recognize that there are certain pathways that you can go, depending on which company you decide to be employed with. Some companies going to be better in certain things than others. I think I myself have found that perseverance is probably the biggest tool or the biggest skill that I have. I've had a lot of jobs where I didn't like, but I was able to stick them out because I knew there was something else that I wanted to do. And it's been blessed. God has taken care of me all the while I've been in this mess, and so I'm all right with it.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Taking that kind of long-term and optimistic view, right? Yeah, so,
I mean,
go ahead.
Like I was saying, I mean, the cruise and timber in East Texas, every day for a year and a half is to me was a test. And I took it that way anyway. And because I knew if I can get through this, I can get through anything. It's like going through boot camps, sort of kind of same mentality for me anyway.
Yeah. A question here, it looks like from one of our current Black Warnell students in that, do you have some advice for, fitting in and feeling comfortable when you're in a predominantly, when you're a minority in a space here, and then, things that maybe the faculty or staff or others did to help you feel more comfortable?
Excuse me. I think number one, you got to feel like you belong. One of the things that being a Black student or a Black person in this society is that there is the tendency to be undervalued, underestimated, and marginalized. And knowing those things, you have to be willing to, I'm thinking you got to be willing to assert the fact that you belong here, you are capable, and you have the necessary skills to be successful. And I found that to be one of those things that you just got to acquire, that you got to take the horns, take the bull by the horns and wrestle it to the ground. You will find people who will question your qualifications. And the answer to that is to show them that you can be successful doing anything that is put in front of you. 39 years, I'm still here.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Go back through the list here for a second. Talked about that. I guess one is about a comment around staying involved with, not just the University of Georgia and football maybe, but also Warnell. And given that you're not in Georgia and you're further removed, has that been difficult, a challenge? And then have you felt it's been beneficial?
Well, one of the things that I was able to do when in the early part of my champion career was that I came back to Warnell and took some training courses. Bruce Borders, for once, taught several of them that I attended, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And but it can be difficult. I mean, there's a few Georgia grads out here that when the Texas Forestry Association have its annual meetings and things like that, I'm able to network with those guys and talk about, the good old days back in Athens, those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, I've tried to hook up with the alumni sites. I think there's one in Houston, which is about 3 hours to the south of me here, and try to stay in contact with those alumni chapters. But it can be difficult. It sure can. Okay.
Well, what about thoughts on, moving from Athens to East Texas? How was that transition early in your career? And
it was, I think the time that I spent more or less on my own in Athens, after my brothers had left, it required that I become my own man, so to say. And so coming to Texas wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, the next step was to get a job. And that was the next step. I came out here, I had a duffel bag and a Foot Locker. And one of the things that really, I mean, it was just a continuation. didn't have a whole lot when I was in Athens. If it wasn't for Pell Grants and work study, I probably wouldn't have stayed in school. So to me, it was the continuation of the adventure. And I saw it all as an adventure because to me, that just, to do things solo, didn't have anybody to fall back on. It was all up to me. And that's how it basically was in college. My parents didn't have hardly anything to provide me with anything. I had 7 brothers, and that was a heavy load for my parents. To put any kind of financial burden on them just wasn't, it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to do that. So when it came time to come to Texas, I was eager. I was ready for it. I wanted to come, and I graduated in March and started to work in April. So I was ready, and I've had a good ride. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all of it.
Okay, I've had 1 or 2 more questions pop up here. One is around mentoring. You had mentioned having a mentor, and I think that you were relating to that after you left Warnell. But we also think of mentoring at Warnell. And when you think about that, have you by chance been able to mentor any students, maybe at SFA or anything along that, or do you have some advice for some folks looking for a mentor at school? Or
Well,
maybe in a job.
Yeah, the level of mentoring that I've been involved on has basically been our summer interns. I'm in charge of that program here in Texas, and so I kind of take it personally to get involved because I know what I wasn't given, and so I kind of look at it as an opportunity to give what I know some of these kids is needing when they come out of school. So that's been my take on that. I think it's important that if you can connect to someone that's especially in a position to where they can see the potential and therefore see the patterns and see the pathways, because I think it's not it's not just okay to hire somebody. I believe you need to have a career path in mind for them. And I think it's important that if you want some of the better students to come work for your organization, it's to your advantage to have that already figured out. And so when we get our summer interns, I think mentoring is probably one of the most important things that we could do for them.
Yep, and we should mention that we do have a UGA mentor program here that's available for connecting students with alumni. So for any students that are out there or any alumni that are out there, that's also available. And we're always looking for additional participants.
Cool.
And then next question, and this is probably the hardest one, maybe, beef brisket or pork butt?
Baby backs.
Okay. So we're about through all the questions here. We do want to, Brent, if possible, have one other person sign on here. And I think Brent is going to allow Clint Moore to hop in here.
Hey, Rex, and I'm sorry to everyone for breaking in here a little bit. I just wanted to point out to you, Rex, that we don't know each other, but we were in the same graduating cohort, I believe, in the school. At the time, I was in the wildlife program, so we were kind of lagged behind some of the forestry people a little bit, slower learners, I guess. I don't know what it was. And, yeah, you said, yeah, you grew up in Cartersville. I was from the metro Atlanta area, but I think we probably entered the school at the same time. And I'm surprised. Yeah, I remember Mervyn Reines as well. I liked him, but I was surprised you didn't choose Jerry Clutter teaching linear programming is like your favorite topic. Producing baseball bats. But you also brought up your internship experience, and in that same summer, 1981. I was also in that program, and I was sent to Georgia Craft Company up in your backyard,
Rome, Georgia.
and there was one of the rotations one of the crew rotations I went through. Actually, they were based out of Cedartown, I think, and so this is going to get in. It's great that we have you, and I'd really like to hear your perspectives on this. But I'll start by sharing my own perspective. Was that in that summer and in that rotation, I had an experience that just kind of shook me to the core, and it was I'd become very, very comfortable with the crew I was working with. And just casually, just before we left to go home, I was asked if I wanted to attend the Klan rally that night. They could get me in, and at the time I just coolly, politely turned it down. But I kind of just staggered out to my car, just to get out of there and get away, and just wondering, like, what did they see in me that they would have thought I would have, but it was, and then I never looked at those crew members I worked with in the same way again through the rest of the summer. I just wanted to get out of that rotation and get back, and I think it was it felt like an opening of the eyes quite a bit that summer, because I just always think back to that moment, when I'm in situations today, and think about the privilege I have, the things that I don't see, and the things that are slowly, exposed to me. So, you went down to Florida, I went up to Northwest Georgia, and I'm not asking you to share, but if there's anything that, like, you felt, you mentioned there were some opportunities you felt like were not available to you. I mean, what do you think race factored into any of that at all, or was it just other circumstances, or what?
I think it was a combination of things, two things mostly. When I worked with Champion in East Texas, there was lots of layers as far as the management goes. And one of the things that was easy to do, and you probably heard the phrase, the good old boy network, well, that was pretty prevalent here. When it came time for promotions, basically the same people got promoted. And so it was so many people competing for the few spots. And then when you see that it's the same folks getting those opportunities, it's kind of hard not to think that it was something other than, because I'm a pretty smart guy. but yeah, I kind of thought that one of the things that that even here in East Texas, I mean, yeah, the Klan is out here too, and one of the things that you run into is that people won't come out and openly do things or say things, but you can feel it. You can feel it. It's how they talk to you or how they don't talk to you. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that if we are to come together as a people, and I'm talking people of the United States and not necessarily black, brown, green, yellow, purple. I think that we have to acknowledge the fact that things was done a certain way, and the only way we're gonna get ahead of those kind of things is to admit it, accept it, and work like crazy to change it. And if we don't do that, then I think we are falling short of our Christian faith. And I think that we owe each other the respect and the dignity to love each other like you are my brother, according to the word. And if we get away from that, I think we're in a tailspin.
Well, thank you for sharing, and welcome back virtually to Warnell.
Thank you, Clint.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Rex. There is, I think we kind of covered this, but maybe it's good to go back and on one thing, give a nugget of wisdom here to some of the young forestry and natural resource professionals as we wrap up the Q&A here.
Well, I think more important than anything else, if forestry is your love, it must be your love, because you're not gonna get rich doing this. but I think you can make a good, honest, decent living. And to me, being a forester, I love to see things grow. It pains me to no end to see my yard in disarray. But I think it's that drive that also tries to push me to a limit to where I want to see this rotation of trees do better than the previous rotation of trees. And I think as you get involved with doing those type of activities, it grows on you. And so if you can get a summer job and get a taste of that, I think it'll do you well.
Okay. Well, that's all we have in the Q&A there, Rex. I'll personally say thank you very much. I very much appreciated it, as I'm sure many of all of our attendees did. I'm going to turn it back over to Thomas Humphreys, and he's going to close out the webinar.
Thank you, Dr. Bullock, and also thank you, Mr. Rex. We really appreciate you giving your insight and giving us something to think about that we wouldn't normally think about. Also, thank you for everybody that attended and for asking questions and for making this what it's been. I know this has been a really great event for the Forestry Club. Not only the Forestry Club, but also Warnell as a whole. It's just great to be able to talk about things that we don't get to talk about every day. And with that being said, thank you again. And if you have any questions about the Forestry Club or anything, feel free to contact me. You can email me at thomas.humphreys@uga.edu. Thank you, and everybody have a great night.
Thank you, Thomas, for inviting me.
Yes, sir.